We are live. Hey, Ven, how you doing?
Hi, man.
Hello and welcome. I always start with hello and welcome to everyone who can join us during the chat. Many thanks to Team Rewatch, because I know between schedules, time zones, and everything, we're not always able to connect at the time. Today, I am joined by Bookish Chaz, also known as Charles McGarry, and author of Talindor's Quest, as well as other books that we'll be chatting about today.
Mhm.
Hey, Lily! So I just, with Van, just realized Nomad's Crucible on my to-buy list. Woohoo!
Oh, thank you. That's awesome.
Hey, Jenny.
Hope you enjoy it.
Now, so I have my questions and I put them in a different order, but I think before we get to Talindor's guest, which by the way I loved, it
Oh,
was
good.
awesome.
Thank
But
you.
then it had dragons, so you have dragons, I have dragons in my name. Well, okay, no, I didn't like Fourth Wing, so I can't say I like everything dragons.
Yeah,
It was just not my kind of read.
I
Hey,
get that.
um, But before we get into the one book of yours that I've read, and I will be reading others, but first off, what got you to write books and more importantly, take the risk of getting them published?
Yeah, yeah, excellent question. Well, I've been making up stories as long as I can remember, back when I was, in my younger years, my preteens, even before that. So storytelling has always been in my blood.
Nice.
And I really only started taking it seriously and actually beginning to write in, let's see, I think it was 2016 is when I started putting together um, my first book, which that one I have not completed yet. It will be completed in the future, but I have not completed that one yet. But that was my first ever attempt at writing an actual book. Um,
Cool.
and I've always loved fantasy from the time I was really young as well. First fantasy book I really ever experienced was Dragon Wing by Margaret Weiss and Tracy Hickman. It's the first book in the Deathgate cycle.
Okay, I haven't read that.
Yeah,
I'll write that down.
it's an excellent series. It's a 7 book series, and it's one of my favorites. I never finished it. I had read the first couple of books back when I was in junior high school, and then I picked it back up as an adult and finished the series just a couple of years ago, and just a really great series. So that was my first experience reading fantasy, and Terry Brooks, of course, sort of Shannara, and then uh, I attempted the Wheel of Time way back at that time, and it it was a little bit over my head, but then I eventually got back in and reread the first couple of books actually. So I've always loved fantasy. I've always loved fantasy in my movie watching and television habits as well. So
Mm-hmm.
anything fantastical and to help me escape the real world a little bit, it's always been something I've been fascinated with. So um, yeah, and so I think the natural progression of that was to uh, get all the get all the voices in my head to start telling me what to put down on paper.
Neat.
Yeah.
Now it's fascinating because you say your first book you still haven't finished, but
Right.
you have a number of books that you've published before that one. So how did that process come about? Is it just you were kind of stuck on the first one and the other ones were all just there and flowing quicker?
Yes. Yeah. I was just stuck on that one, and I've been working on ways to work out the kinks and kind of, get that book flowing again.
Mm.
But at the time, it just the ideas that were evolving in my head weren't working too well with what I'd already written for that book. So I really need to go back and rehash it and kind of make changes so that I can finish writing it. So
Awesome. Well, and awesome as well that you didn't just give up, right?
mhm.
And say, okay, well, this isn't going to work. Guess I'm not meant to do it. And you went ahead and wrote. So, what was your second book?
Yeah, so my second book was Talindor's Guest. And
Here we go.
yeah, there we go. Yeah, you got I need what I need to do is I need to take the blur off of mine because that's just not helpful.
Focus.
But yeah, there it is. Yeah, so
It's
Talindor's Guest
matching.
was yeah. That was my first book and actually it used to be called Dragon Shorts, a collection of outlandish tales.
Okay.
And the frame story that starts the book and ends the book was not there. So I originally published it under that name and it had a different cover. In fact, the dragon that you see on my YouTube channel banner, that
Yep.
used to be the dragon on the cover of my book.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And then I got picked up by a small press and they encouraged me to rework it and turn it into more of a novel because their reasoning was that lesser known authors who write short story collections don't usually do too well, which I'm sure is true. So I
Okay.
figured out a frame story for it and turned it into kind of an Arabian Nights type of thing. So
Neat.
that's how Talindor's Guest began.
So, and that answers one of my questions actually, because I was going to ask you, and we don't do spoilers, so I'm
Right.
not going to give anything away. But I was wondering because it's all the chunk of the book is the short stories, which are excellent. And I was going to ask, did you know the ending as you were writing these short stories?
Mm-hmm.
But it actually sounds like you had all the short stories and you added the beginning and the end
Mm-hmm.
after, which would have been even a different process.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it was a very unique experience for me. And
Yeah.
yeah, to go back and rework it after the fact. So but I like how it turned out. Actually, I feel much better about Talindor's Guest as it is now versus its original release.
Oh, there
So
we go. So
yeah,
it was a good
it fits my writing a lot better.
well, and it works beautifully. I mean, without you having said that, I would never have guessed that that isn't the way it just always was. Like, because I was gonna, and I mean, the names, that was the other, like, where did you come up with all these names in the short stories? Because there's so many different locations and people. How do you come up with that many different names?
Yeah, I have a couple of different methods on that. I do think long and hard about the names I'm going to include in the different stories, and I I look up. I think about words that I want to describe certain people, and I will look up in Google Translate, for instance, and
Oh,
I'll
neat.
type
Yeah.
in that word and I'll look at how it's pronounced or spelled in different languages, and I'll tweak it ever so slightly to come up with the name. And sometimes the names come from people I've known or people I've heard of. So I have a few different sources for names, but yeah, names are very important to me for my characters.
Now, do you keep a file of all those names after you found them, Chaz? And
I
then,
do.
yeah,
Yeah.
that's and that's a great idea because then whatever other thoughts you have, even if you're, just playing around with it for a bit, do you
Mhm.
find maybe sometimes the name creates the character, or is it the other way around?
That's a good question. I hadn't really thought too much about it. I feel like the characters really create themselves, but there's definitely a point where it becomes very clear early on if a name does not work for a character.
Okay.
I've found that I just started writing a new book, and I discovered early on in the first couple of paragraphs that the character's name that I was using was not a good fit, and so I had to retool it. Um, and so yeah, I definitely get a sense of a name that kind of clashes with who that person is.
That's cool. One, because just as I was asking, I was thinking, because with fur kids, right, we all have to come up with their names. They don't get to tell us. And it
Hmm.
was funny because when we took in two of our feral colony, because they were born in our backyard, the other cats were out. And so we brought in two of the boys, both black,
Uh-huh.
Shadow, because he always followed me in the yard. And
Uh-huh.
then we ended up bringing his brother in with him. But his brother was kind of off to the side, and we didn't have a name for him because initially we weren't bringing him in. He hadn't shown an interest. He'd be like laying to the side, like, why are you hanging with that human? And so it was a few weeks later, and it was just Panther. Just
Hmm.
it made sense and it fit. But it was one of those, I didn't want to name him until I had a sense what would work for him. So,
Yeah.
but I do want to, and yes, I've been following the chat, and for a change, Jenny and Kat aren't filling it up like crazy to see if I can keep up. And I
Okay.
thank the two of you for that.
Yeah,
But
definitely.
Jenny's saying, I like spoilers. Chaz could have warned me about what happens in both Turncoat and Changes. I feel betrayed. Now, I'm these are two of your books?
No, those are Dresden Files books.
Ooh,
Yeah, those are
now.
Dresden Files books, and Changes especially has some huge jaw drops. So yeah, yeah,
See now.
and I'm sorry, Jenny. You know how much I care about you, and I should have warned you. I know that's my bad.
See, I just read Stormfront. I just started the Dresden Files because I keep
Mm,
hearing everybody talk about them. And
yeah.
my running joke now is I also heard everybody talking about Fourth Wing, and we all know how that went for me. It spicy, spicy. No, it needed more dragons, less boom chicka wawa. I don't want to read it.
Yeah.
I don't care. I wanted the dragons.
Yeah.
But then I got to Stormfront. Well, I actually lucked out in my book haul and I got the first two of the Dresden Files.
Hmm.
So I just finally read Stormfront, and I love going to my thrift store because it's typically Saturday. So it's always the same two people, and we get into these big conversations, and they always have great books to recommend. And
Hmm.
the one has read all of the Dresden Files, and she keeps telling me, don't read them back to back. It's too much. Don't do it. And I'm like, yeah, okay. But I know me, and I don't like waiting for a series, and I don't read new series because I don't want to invest in characters and the author goes, "Yeah, no, I'm done."
Hmm.
Wait a minute. No. So I've read number 1. I enjoyed it. What did you think of it?
Oh, I loved it. Yeah, right from the get-go. I've always been a huge fan of the classic noir private detective, the your Humphrey Bogarts and your I've always been a huge fan of that kind of thing. So when I got to combine that with a wizard in modern day Chicago, I was sold. And I absolutely love the series. And the nice thing about the earlier Dresden books is it's they can easily be standalones because it's kind of your
Yeah.
monster of the week type thing. But as the series goes on, they do start to kind of follow after each other. And by the time
Okay.
I got to Changes, that book that Jenny mentioned, I was doing them back to back once a month. I couldn't stop.
See, and that's what ended up for me with Wheel of Time. That's how I knocked that out in a year because I saw the 8 episodes on Prime, and I'm like, oh, I bet this is based on a book. And then I looked into it and realized, wow, these aren't even new books. So I ended up buying a box of the 3-box set because I've got the Tor Mass paperbacks. And then I'm like, okay, I really like these. Now I got to know how this ends. So I just ended up buying all the sets in 2022 and just plowing through them.
Yeah.
And so with Dresden, because I really did like the first book, I know a lot of people have said not so much to get further into the series, but I loved the first book. I mean, it wasn't overly gruesome. I like Harry Dresden. The cat's good. So, it's not a Stephen King book. It was all, it checked all the boxes. It was a nice, happy, creepy monster read. And I have book 2. My library has book 3. I'm not sure if they have book 4. And I'm like, okay, I need to get more of these books that I know I can go in order because I know I'll want to keep going. So I'm holding on. Well, besides the fact that March is insanely busy for reading, because I still have to get to book 2 of Wheel of Time. Kat and I are doing the Vampire Chronicles. We just started this month. So I need to hang out with Louis, Claudia, and Lestat very soon. And so it's like, I really want to get to Dresden Files, but I gotta wait.
I completely understand that. And yeah, and it's still technically ongoing. He just finished writing the next Dresden book.
Oh, now how many? Is it like 17 or something at this point?
There's 17 full novels and 2 collections of short stories.
Oh, wow.
So technically this next book coming up is going to be book 18, and I believe he has a definitive end planned for the series at 25 books.
Wow.
So, yeah, and I'm here for it all. It's been a fantastic series. So
well, and that's good to know. And I mean, now that I've read book 1, I'm looking forward to it when I can keep going with it. Because, like I say, it ticks the boxes. It's not overly scary to keep you up at night, but it's interesting with different elements that you never quite know what's going to happen. It doesn't have that romance stuff. So, it's all good. And even if he ends up getting a girlfriend down the road, she doesn't seem like the kind who's going to be, and yes, I'm saying this for you, Kat, it's not going to be all Violet wanting to climb Zayden every other page. Like, I'm just not there for it. Or Akatar with Feyre. And yes, I taught Ven a new term because I've read 3.5 because one's a novella. And then there's number 4 of the Akatar series. And I'm like, besides the fact that it's mostly Boom Chicka Wawa, which does not interest me in the least, the only 2 who get their pipes cleaned regularly are Feyre and Rysand. Like, what? Nobody else could, get in on some action? Seriously. I know it's a romance, but why is it just one couple that always get to get jiggy with it? There's like tons of other characters.
Get their pipes cleaned. I'm going to have to remember that one, Elaine.
Oh, see. Well, then I know when I said it must have been, and he's like, what now? I'm like, have you not heard that? So yeah, I'm old. Way back when it was talking about going to get your pipes cleaned. If someone was all gnarly, it's like, go get your pipes cleaned.
Right. Oh, that's great. There are, I will say there are times in the Dresden books that something like that happens, but it's it's brief and it's not part of the core story. So
Yeah, and
yeah.
I mean that's it. And when I've heard, and we'll get back to Talindor's, but with Dresden, as people have described it, what I mainly think of, and again, this dates me, is Night Stalker. I think it was Gavin MacLeod.
Okay.
Now, he wasn't a wizard, but he was literally out, was a TV show. Oh, was it in the 70s? Must
Mhm.
have been because I watched it when I was younger, up there with Alfred Hitchcock Presents and
Yes.
Twilight Zone. You know, all the shows every little kid should be watching. But yeah, I mean, it was great. And because I've always loved those types of ghost supernatural. And so Dresden Files to me sounds like Night Stalker in book form, like he's always out dealing with other creatures, but there wasn't the council and all of this type of stuff like in Dresden. But I am glad that they're good. And I'm just quick. Oh, something here about cobwebs. So if I don't get all your comments, everybody, sorry. It's a new, oh, there you go. New one, heard pipes, cobwebs forever. Okay, and the next, I may get to it this year. I'm thinking that's not a response.
Yeah,
Fast,
no,
easy reads, you'll breeze through them. So I'm wondering if those are
might
Dresden.
be Dresden, yeah.
Oh, gotta find them.
Oh
Library
yeah.
sale this month. There
Library
we
sale might
go.
have a few.
Yeah, and I'm always jealous because I keep hearing different people get to go to their library sales or that they have library books always for sale right in their branch. Here
Yeah.
in my area, they only have one big sale 3 days a year.
Oh yeah.
And I'm like, well, that stinks. But then on the other hand, my thrift store is open all year, excellent prices, 30% or 50% off. So it's
Yeah.
good.
Yeah, my
See,
my my library has a section of books for sale, but it's a very small section, and I rarely ever find anything there. Yeah, not much to speak of.
see, I did not start it. Well, okay, maybe I did, but it was just where his comment went. And yes, Ben is, where did I,
I
oh,
love
here we,
it. Cat's causing chaos again. I love it.
that's right. We've got the chaos gremlins. We're just missing Noah, but not a chimney sweep cat. But yeah, and so I want to check because I did want to ask now with the short stories, then,
Mhm,
because you were writing them out and you had your collection, and then
mhm.
it became the novel. So that kind of answered that. When you wrote the short stories, do they appear in the novel in the order that you wrote them?
Um, for the most part, I think so. There's probably a few in there that are out of order, but because I did there's a few in there that I wrote before I did some of the others, so they are probably more scattered, to be honest. Yeah, and
Neat.
then I went back and I tried to think, okay, what would work best as the first story to open the book, and what would work best as the last story. And if I'm not mistaken, I believe the very last story before the end of the book is Dragonfall, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah.
And that was very intentional, uh, making that the last story. It was very intentional.
Well, and that's why I wondered if you knew when you were putting this together because yeah, that dragon story certainly ties in with the ending and where everything goes. So that's why I figured, did he already know how this was going to end and then the stories flowed from there, or was it, the other way around? Now, before we came on, and I think you mentioned this in one of your videos, how long did it take you to do Talindor's Guest?
Oh boy. So I wrote all the stories I think in a span of a year, and a couple of them were based on dreams I had. So I keep a little notebook where, if I wake up from a really vivid dream and I remember most of it, I'll write it down. So a couple of them were based on dreams,
Oh,
but
cool.
others were just random ideas that popped into my head that I wrote down for later and made a story out of it. So all in all, I think it took about a year for me to put it all together, as far as
That's
writing the
good.
stories.
Nice.
Yeah.
Now, do you keep a dream journal?
I don't, but I have thought about it, and partly because of the experience I had with two of the stories in the book.
Yeah.
I've thought about keeping a dream journal. Yes.
Yeah, see, that's something I've done for decades. Not that I'm a writer and I don't get stories from them. I just find it interesting to see what comes up because I believe dreams are kind of your way of working through everyday
Mhm.
stuff. But
Sure.
I don't use dream symbols
Okay.
because I figure it this way. If I have a house in a dream, a house is going to mean something different to me than
Mhm.
it would mean to you because again, based on life experience and all of that. And even animals because I work with animal guides and I have for decades. If I see a hawk, to me a hawk means you're looking too narrow. You need to have hawk vision, look at the big picture. But
Mhm.
that doesn't necessarily mean that's what it's going to represent for everyone else, right? Because people learn different things about the animals, and you need to also factor in if it's in the daytime, not a dream, what else is going on? What are you thinking? Or is it just the hawk happens to be flying by? Like it's not a clear cut every time you see a hawk, you're looking too narrow.
Mhm.
So there's all of that. But that's why, yeah, with dreams, they're the only journals I haven't shredded up because there's always different, you get cool little symbols or
Mhm.
ideas. And then it's like, oh, and then when you look back, it's that 2020. Oh, I figured that out in my dream. Why didn't I see that coming kind of thing? But yeah, it's I love doing that kind of stuff, but like I say, I don't buy any of the symbol books because I think you have to stop and consider what does that mean for you for the
Right.
dream to make sense.
Yeah, exactly.
I see there's still I've started something with cleaning pipes and then they went on they're still cleaning chimneys.
Yeah. Yeah, yeah, it was, Vin had made a comment about a chimney sweep, and it all went down the Mary Poppins route. I when I first saw that Vin had posted that, I'm like, "Oh, Mary Poppins," uh, and then it all went down the Mary Poppins route, which I'm not upset about. I like that movie.
It's the one thing here. The chat always has a good time.
Right, yeah. Yeah.
And by all means, if you're done with the chimney sweep, kids, and you have a question for Chaz about any of his books, be sure to put it down there so that we get a chance to ask him while we have him. But
Yeah,
yeah, and
feel
I'm
free,
just
I'm an open book. No pun intended.
so yeah, and I'm just going through. So I did ask what inspired you to write and publish. Also, well, we have the folkies. Hey, Hermit, good to see you.
Hi, Hermit.
I missed your sprint before. But yes, while we have our lovely folks here and not completely filling up the chat with to see can she keep up with it, where can people find your works, Chaz?
Yeah, thank you. Currently, all of my books are on Amazon. I exclusively publish through Amazon right now.
Okay.
I'm kind of looking at ways that I might be able to change that, but right now Amazon has been good for me as an author,
Good.
and it's a very easy process for the most part to publish with them. So, yeah, you can buy paperback as well as ebook through Amazon. And so Amazon.com, and then I have links to it on my website as well, um, which
Okay.
is chaz-creates.com.
Nice.
So yeah.
And I just wanted, because I did get your book through Amazon. Now, here's the interesting thing, because with life and the hullabaloo between Canada, America, and yada yada.
Right.
And I have Kat's cookbook as well that I got through Amazon. The
Mm-hmm.
funny thing is, they're from Bolton, Ontario here.
Oh,
So I
interesting.
can guilt-free continue with Amazon because I'm still giving Canadian folks jobs
Yeah, that's
while
great.
supporting my American friends who are publishing through Amazon. But
Yeah.
yeah, I found that fascinating because all of the folks that are self-published, and I think I have three of you, they're all from Bolton, Ontario. The only exception is when I got the Anne Rice books, because they're through a different publisher. So they were published through that author. But
Uh-huh.
yeah, I did want to know if you were selling independently through your website or if it's strictly through, because I mean, there's a lot of expense to putting your work out there, especially for a self-published
Mm-hmm.
author.
Yeah, there definitely is. I'm looking into different options for selling my book directly. Maybe not the physical book, although because I have to keep a stock on hand for that, which isn't necessarily a bad thing. I get author copies at a steep discount.
Nice.
Um, so I pay a lot less than what the public does for that, and then I can resell them. So I could do that. I am considering eventually doing my ebooks through my website exclusively because I can just do an EPUB file. But
Mhm.
I don't know if you sell your book outside of Amazon right now, you get a lot less royalties, which
Mm.
it's
You gotta weigh out
it's a golden
what's
ball and
best for
chain.
you.
Yeah, but I do want to kind of see if I can move away from Amazon. Um, I definitely like being able to control my own sales and everything. So it's something or that I'm considering. I do have Talindor's Guest with Ingram Spark as well, which with Ingram Spark I can get it in libraries and other bookstores if I want to.
Nice.
I've considered looking into Barnes and Noble for selling my book through them. Um, so I've got some options. It's kind of an avalanche, so
Mm,
it's a little overwhelming. But
yeah.
eventually, I do hope to branch out. And I just started using a Kobo e-reader, and Kobo had you can publish your ebooks through Kobo as well.
Oh,
So I may
nice.
look into something like that. Um, but yeah, it's a good question, Kat. I've got a lot of I've got a lot of feelers out, but none of them are tingling right now. So
But I mean, again, until you try and give it a whirl, and
mhm.
I see Ven also has a question. So
Oh
before
yeah.
we get to Ven's question, what else can people find on your website, Chaz? Because you have merch as well, right?
Yeah, I've got merch as well. So there's a link to my merch store. I also have there is a link to my YouTube channel via the website as well.
Nice.
So there's that, and I think that's about it right now. I do have a blog on there, so I'm going to kind of keep that up to date with new things that are happening, whether it's on my channel or with my books. And um, so, yeah, eventually I am planning to do an audiobook for Talindor's Guest. and I'm thinking I'm probably going to sell that exclusively on my website,
Nice.
just as a downloadable audio file. So we'll see how that goes, but
That's awesome. And I mean, so many different options. And, like you say, it can be a bit overwhelming because there's so many different things to it. And each place has its own rules. And then having to figure out, is it your best option? Does it limit you in other options? And, for myself as an average reader, you don't really know everything that goes on behind the scenes for authors, right? You just see a book either in, well, up here it's Indigo, down there I think it's comparable to your Barnes and Noble, and people really don't get everything that goes into not just the come up with the idea and the months or years it takes to produce that work, but then it's the getting the work on the shelf so that we, the readers, can get to it as well. So yeah.
Yeah.
Oh,
Oh, thank you, Kat. I appreciate that.
there you go.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Now, Ven, do you have a favorite character you've written? Would you ever revisit them in another book? Excellent question.
Oh, that's a good question. Yeah. I do have a favorite character, and that would be the Ink Master in Talindor's Guest. Well, and there's a couple of them. I would say that I really loved writing Vast and Tread in the Nomad's Crucible as well. But I still have a special place in my heart for the Ink Master, and he is actually going to show up in my next book, the
Cool.
one I'm writing currently. So yeah, he will play a much more significant side character role in that book. So
Nice. So
mhm.
that's kind of like, and I'm thinking, must have been one of your reviews on Stephen King.
Hmm.
Either that or it was on a chat. Because I haven't read Gunslinger. I read the
Mhm.
first one, but didn't read any of the others. It wasn't my thing.
I get that.
But I love Salem's Lot, well, other than the doggy scene.
I do too.
Now, you were mentioning that because in Salem's Lot, he never really finishes up with the priest or explains what happened to the priest. But you said the priest comes up in the Gunslinger series, if I
Hmm.
remember correctly.
He does. Yeah. Not
Do you
until
remember?
quite a bit later. Yeah.
Now, does that mean I have to read all of it to figure him out, or could I just jump ahead to where he is
Well, yeah, that series is one that you definitely kind of need to read in order.
in order?
And he doesn't really pop up until book 5.
Mm,
Yeah, yeah, he doesn't
so
really
that's
pop
a
up
can
in,
wait guy.
yeah, yeah, yeah. He comes into play in Wolves of the Kala, and and it's great. It was interesting to see. It was interesting to see him again after having read about him in Salem's Lot,
Mm,
and he's a very different person by that time.
no doubt.
Yeah, mhm.
Because,
Very
I
different
mean,
person.
that was the thing too, because the way his character played out in Salem's, and then you just don't know. You get different parts, and even I just finished Night Shift. See,
Mm,
this is what happens. I bought Night Shift and Skeleton Crew at my
okay.
thrift store. I got them for $1 together
Hmm.
because it was 50% off day. But now every time I keep saying it wrong and I keep calling it Night Crew, and I'm like, no, they're two separate books. But in there, he's got actually two stories. One is called Jerusalem's Lot, but has
Hmm.
nothing to do with Salem's Lot. And then there's oh, I can't think of the name of it, but it's near the end. And I actually have my review little snippets about all the stories this week. But that one follows after Salem's Lot. So,
Hmm.
yeah, it's funny how he's got the name, but it's so different.
Actually, Jerusalem's Lot is related to Salem's Lot.
Is it?
Loosely, but it is. The town in the book Salem's Lot is known as Jerusalem's Lot,
Yeah.
but they kind of shortened it to Salem's Lot. So it is loosely connected, but
Hmm.
not completely. So
Yeah,
yeah.
because it doesn't have the Marston House and
Hmm.
some of that. And I even put in my video because Dark Stars Book Cavern had done a summary about those two stories and compared it with Salem's Lot. So I'm like, yeah, I'm not recreating the wheel. Go watch Dark Star and I'll tell you about the other 19 stories, but no spoilers.
Right.
Because she had a really great way of explaining it.
Yeah. Okay, that's interesting. I'll have to go check that out. I like her channel a lot.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'll have to go check that out. Uh, and I have not read Jerusalem's Lot. I only know about it based on what other people have told me
Yeah.
and some interviews I've seen from Stephen King. So, but okay, good to know.
Yeah, Dark Star explains it beautifully, and I hadn't reread them yet at that point.
Yeah.
And I just finished it. I think so. Oh, wait. See, this is where not having Goodreads but being old school paper is good. Night Shift, I finished on March the 3rd because I have my handy dandy little thing. So yeah, I hadn't reread them yet. And for me, most of King, anything up to Dolores Claiborne will be
Yeah.
a reread because I
Okay.
had been reading them all the way through. And then by the time I was getting to Dolores, it was like, yeah, I'm enjoying you. And I read a lot of Kuntz as well. And it's like, no, now I'm venturing into the land of nonfiction. And the vast, I would say, 70% of my personal books are nonfiction, like a very itty bitty bit. And I've only been rebuilding that over the last couple of years at the thrift store is fiction. Because for the longest time, I mean, the odd time oh no, see, I just lied. Revival is probably the newest King I've read.
Okay.
And
Yeah.
that one, but yeah, that was a whole thing there. Now I think Kat here is asking about your character, whether it's going to be a sequel or a spin-off.
Yeah, good question, Kat. It's actually this is a book where we'll kind of find out where the Ink Master came from. So it's kind of a prequel of sorts, but he won't be the main character. And I do have all of my books. At least right now, they're all standalones, and that's probably how I'm going to keep it. But they do there is a loose connection between all the books. There are some
Nice.
recurring characters in all the books that pop up. The Traveler is one of those. Elaine, he's one of the recurring characters, and
Awesome.
so he's part of that group. But um, some of his kind show up in the Nomad's Crucible, but not him specifically. So uh,
Hmm.
yeah, so they are connected, but that all of them, at least my plan is, can be read as standalones. So you don't have to have read other books to appreciate them, and
D-
that's really important to me. I don't really I like Brandon Sanderson's books for instance,
hmm.
but I don't like forcing my readers to read my
By
entire
18 books?
backlog. Yeah, yeah, yeah. I just that's not my thing.
or or do you like is it George R. R. Martin have these big doorstops and then go,
Oh,
yeah, I'm done.
yeah.
And that's why I say, no, I like, these standalones.
Uh-huh.
It's great if the series has been out for a while, so then I know I can hopefully get my hands on all of them. But
Hmm.
yeah, it's great that you can read them as standalones, but as you're reading them, um, still recognize characters from some of the other ones. So I'll have
Hmm.
to put a few more of those on my wish list and see if, because I always have my shameless plug, little Amazon link below my videos in case
Sure.
anyone, wants to help a girl out in between my but yeah, and she is lovely. I
Mhm.
just enjoy her videos. And Ven wants her hat.
I want her hat too. Yeah, I mean,
She
I'm a hat guy, and I'm always on the lookout for cool hats, and she's definitely got a cool hat.
Well, and she always has these amazing outfits as well when
Right.
I mean, she dresses up so nice and she's got those awesome book covers. I mean, mine are well, okay. I'm finally getting around to reading this because I figured the time was good. It's a
Nice.
reread. But my covers are all like this, plain, plain. They're not all purdy like Dark Stars and Vans with the beautiful designs and things.
Yeah, yeah. She recently reviewed, or she recently did an unboxing for the Mask of Mirrors set
Mm.
of books from Broken Binding, and they're absolutely beautiful, and I love that series. And it really made me jealous. I'm like, oh man, maybe I should have signed up for those after all, but I didn't need to spend the money. But they're really beautiful. Yeah.
Yeah, and I was actually chatting with Ven earlier today, and I said, yeah, I finally am getting caught up on some of the BookTube videos. And
Yeah.
the best way I found to do that is when I'm noticing them come through on my notifications, pop them into my watch later. And then
Hmm.
every now and again, okay, tonight's because I rarely watch TV anymore. I can't be bothered. I'm not investing into 8 episodes of what may or may not continue in a year or two from now. It's
I
like,
get that.
nope. I got too many other books and things to do. Not happening. So right now we're just working our way through Farscape because
Okay.
we've
Yeah.
got the DVDs and the movies. We've seen it before. I love it.
Hmm.
And we get to it every few nights. So my hubby will watch TV maybe a couple hours. Well, okay, maybe an hour and then nod off. But, and I'll sometimes watch it. And yeah, I don't know. Do you have any TV series you're watching currently?
Oh boy, I have way too many. I do. Yeah, we've been watching the new Daredevil on Disney Plus. So that's been fun because I'm a huge Marvel Cinematic Universe guy. So I we've been watching that, and I usually watch the Star Wars Disney Plus shows as well.
Mm.
So we've got some of those coming up. I plan to watch season 3 of the Wheel of Time because I DNF the book series,
Yeah.
but I really like the show, so I'm gonna watch the next season of that, and I've watched Rings of Power, and I need to go back and finish Buffy. I've been wanting to finish Buffy for a while.
See, now Buffy, we bought the DVDs, and that's how we watched that whole series. Because when she was on TV, and I
Yeah.
think that's part of it, because I'm also a big Supernatural fan.
Yeah.
And when it was on TV, I stopped at season 7 because I'm like, okay, how many times you've had the apocalypse? It took
Hmm.
you a season to get rid of the Mother of Time. Like, really, it took you 3 years to catch a demon, but one season to do in the Mother of Time. And then when the Leviathan showed up, I'm like, and now we're done. And then it was years later, and we ended up getting the DVDs. So I've watched the whole series now, beginning to end, at least twice. But
Mm-hmm.
back then there was 20, 22 or 23 episodes to a season, you
Right.
know? And I grew up in a time when September was when all the new shows and new cartoons came out,
Mm-hmm.
and you had a new episode every week right until June,
That's
May,
right.
June-ish. And when school was out, which up here is July and August, it was reruns, which I didn't care because I grew up in the country. So I wasn't inside watching TV anyhow. And if
Right.
I was inside, I was reading. So to me, 8 episodes, just
It's not a
no.
lot. Yeah, it's not a lot to really get you as invested. I understand that.
Well, or even the depth of the characters, right? Because, and I'll just use Supernatural because, it was, or even Big Bang, which was like a half-hour show.
Mm,
But, the 12 years of Big Bang, when you had all those episodes, even though they were only half an hour, you could really develop and get to know the characters and
yeah.
see the growth of the characters within a year or two. But to try and do that in 8 episodes,
Mm-hmm.
and especially if the series isn't coming back for a year, you don't get to see the growth the same way.
Yeah, right.
And I don't know, maybe it's because I'm in my 60s. It's like life is short. I got other things to do than, if it's a good show, people can tell me.
That exactly. That's for sure.
It's and oh, here we go. Cat, standalone's so much less stressful.
Yes, they are. That's so true.
And I agree. Like with now, do you read any vampire books, Chaz?
I do. Yeah, I love vampire. I have not read the Vampire Chronicles yet, but I do love some vampires. I love vampire movies as well. I'm a huge fan of the Underworld movies.
Yeah.
Those are some of my favorites. But I have seen Interview with the Vampire, the movie. I've never read the book.
See now with
But,
the if you don't want to read a series, because I think it's, and Kat can correct me, it's 12 or 13 books for the whole series.
yeah.
And Louis and Lestat were my second and third vampires because I started
Okay.
with Dracula.
Mm-hmm.
And so I read it when it first came out, and then she kept writing the series, and I followed it for a bit, and then that went by the wayside. And then because I don't read the series in order, then I got
Mm-hmm.
Prince Lestat,
Mm-hmm.
which is the last, second to last book in the series.
Mm-hmm.
But you could actually just read book one and Prince Lestat without
Mm-hmm.
reading anything in between and be caught up, because what she did in Prince Lestat is all the vampires are back in to deal with this big bad, but she gives you the backstories, so you
Mm-hmm.
get the connections between all of them. So even if you haven't read the series, you I mean, it's reading the books about all the different vampires, but you're not lost in who are all these vampires and where did they come from. Like, she really pulled it together and made those connections. But
Mm-hmm.
yeah, there's some good ones out there for sure. But yeah, you could read Prince Lestat as a standalone and not even read any of the others.
Well, that's good to know. That's good to know. I'm looking forward to picking it up eventually. I absolutely loved Dracula. I loved Carmilla. Uh,
I
I like
did too.
I like Carmilla a bit better than Dracula, actually.
Really?
And yeah, I like them both, but I liked Carmilla slightly more.
So here's a question, and I just recently read Carmilla, and I've read it twice now because it's a nice short read.
Hmm.
Who is the woman with Carmilla?
Oh, the you mean the older lady that
Yeah, yeah,
masquerades as her
mother.
caretaker, or her mother? Yeah. I'm I'm assuming she's I'm assuming she's an older vampire, but I don't think we really find out.
No,
We never get much about her. It's all focused on Carmilla. So yeah.
because I read it because the first time I'm like, yeah, okay, did the rest of it made sense? And I'm
Mm-hmm.
like, wait a minute, who is she? Because she's not mentioned at the castle or anything. And then I read it the second time, and I'm like, I still okay, this is not making me happy. Like, who is this woman?
Yeah. Yeah, Kat's right. It could be her sire, possibly.
Oh,
Um, maybe the vampire
had to
that
initially,
turned her. Maybe
yeah,
I'm not sure, but that's a good theory. Yeah.
that's possible. So Kat's just picking on Ven for his pretty covers.
Right.
Not catching up at all right now. Managed to catch lives today at least. Rarely disappointed. I'm guessing that's with the books. Oh, Kat has this ongoing thing with Ven to watch Lion King. He has not
Good
seen
movie.
it. He's saying no thanks.
Yeah,
It's so much
it's a great
fun.
movie.
And I mean, that's the one thing, and I do enjoy it. Jenny is never going to agree with us about DNFing a book.
Mm,
And I rarely do it. I think there were two of them last year, and ironically, they were both nonfictions, but they
mm-hmm.
were by authors I'd tried before, and I'm just like, yeah, you're still not working for me. But I think the awesome thing, at least in the community of people that I've been blessed to connect with,
Mm-hmm.
is even though we have books that we don't all enjoy, we can have amazing discussions about them and find
Mm-hmm.
out, okay, well, what is it you didn't like, or why didn't this do it for you, or what did you find fascinating about this? Because I know, and I just keep going back to it because it's the big bugaboo is Fourth Wing.
Yeah.
But I've read so many other stories that to me, as I was reading it, all these other stories were coming into my mind. And it just felt like she took about 5 of those stories,
Mm-hmm.
smooshed them in a blender, and then just threw it on the wall to see what would stick and work.
Mm-hmm.
But for other people who are brand spanking new, it was amazing because it was new, it was fresh, it was different. And I'm like, yeah, that makes sense. So
Yeah.
I love that we can have those discussions and it doesn't have to be one of those, well, how dare you not like this book because I
Right.
did kind of thing. Like I'm like, really? That's the hill you're gonna croak on? Like it's a book. It's a book.
Exactly. And I try not to DNF books, but there have been a few, and I I joke that I've gotten better at DNFing because if I feel a book just isn't working for me, I just I give it a fair shot, but if I get to 50% and it's just not clicking with me, I let it go. And but yeah, and but that's still very few and far between. Yeah, it that doesn't happen too often. So,
Yes. See, I don't really I mean, like I say, there were only 2 last year and I gave them away.
hmm
Um, Others will end up sitting on my shelf, so they're not technically DNF. They may sit there
yeah,
for 5, 10 years,
uh-huh,
and then I'll pick it up. But I mean, and Kat always teases me about this. I mean, I can literally have 10 to 20 books on the go.
hmm
Excuse me. I think I've got 17 outstanding from last year. The 5 I've started this past week, and 3 more I still have to finish from 2023. And I'll just pick them up and finish them. And Kat's like, how do you keep track? And I'm like, I
mm.
don't know. I'm weird. It's just the way my brain works.
You're not that weird, and if you are, that you're just weird like me because I can do that too. I can set a book down and come back to it 6 months, a year later, and still pick right back up. You know, I might
Thank
go
you,
back.
Mom.
Yeah, I might go back one page just to kind of refresh my memory, but usually I can pick it right back up. There's a
Yeah.
couple of books that I have not finished that I do plan to go back to. One is The Child Thief by Brahm, and that it's a Peter Pan retelling, and it was good, but it just wasn't fully clicking with me at the time. But I know I want to go back and finish it. And another one's The Justice of Kings, and I've got a few that I've done that with. And but sometimes I just fully DNF the book and don't go back to it. So it really depends.
Yeah, see, and I find being a mood reader, when I pick it up, I'm all into it. And then I'm like, no, not working right now. And so then it goes on the shelf, and then I'll browse something else, and then like, yep, I'll read this, and then it's like, no. I mean, last week was, well, about as cray-cray as the world. And I know that's part of why, because I would pick up a book and then I'm like, yeah, no, I want to read. So last week I literally started 5 different books. I'm like, okay, this is nuts even for me. So now I'm starting to get them finished. But
Yeah.
I think it was the last time you were on the live, we were talking about it, because I remembered you have your TBR videos, and I'm like, yep, can't put the names in a cup and pull them. I gotta see my whole shelves and browse. I can't do it.
Yeah, I get that. Yeah, and that's why I started doing pulling reading prompts from the jar, because that way I can still kind of peruse my shelf and see what I need to read and see if it fits with the prompt.
There we go.
Yeah.
I'm just gonna try and catch up a bit. Now, this I'm pretty sure is from Supernatural. I think they did have a musical episode.
Yeah.
Which, Jensen does sing. Star Trek did a musical in Strange New Worlds.
I did hear about that, yeah.
Amy grew a lot very quickly. Sheldon stayed in need of a swirly. There were a lot of changes. Never watched Big Bang.
I haven't either, actually. Yeah.
Really?
Yeah, I never watched it.
We've got all 12 years, and we've watched it through twice because there were just half-hour episodes, comedy. But yeah, it was great. Leonard and Sheldon and physics and all of quantum theory. It was, science and stuff, but not boring. It was just cute watching these characters kind of come out of their shells and interact with other people. And yeah, it was fun.
Yeah,
it was just fun. See, I've never watched Lucifer.
Yeah, I haven't either. I have watched Angel. I started watching Angel in conjunction with Buffy since they cross over. So yeah.
Hey, Nicole.
Oh, good to see you. Oh, okay. Well, you can always come back and do the rewatch.
Yeah, and Nicole will be here on Thursday.
Oh, nice. That's exciting.
We'll be chatting about her Obsidian Murders and Celtophile reads.
Nice.
We have Ari. Here we go.
Yep, Ari's,
see Kitty.
Ari's popped up to say hi.
She did Pandora dirty. Yes, you keep saying, made her completely mindless when she was feisty originally.
I'm really loving the Empire of the Vampire series by Jay Kristoff. I don't know if you've heard of it.
No, I have not.
It's a fantastic series, and it's a trilogy, and the final book comes out in November. The first one is Empire of the Vampire. The second book is Empire of the Damned, and the third book is Empire of the Dawn. And fantastic series. It takes place in a world where the vampires have conjured a special kind of magic that will blot out the sun. And so now vampires can run rampant over the entire world, and there's a select few that have stepped up to right things and bring out the sun again. That's a very simple summary of it, but it's excellent. Such a good story.
Now, see, and have you read Dracula?
I have, yeah.
Okay, so pop quiz, and I know I got this wrong, and it irks me that my husband got it right. Could Dracula go out in the daytime?
He could, as I remember. Yes, he could.
So does Carmilla. It was Hollywood that got this whole vampire nighttime shtick going. The vampires before could all go out during the day. They just weren't as powerful. And I got that wrong. And it was after we had just watched Francis Ford Coppola's Dracula. And he's like, don't you remember? And I'm like, well, obviously not. But now, do you have a favorite Dracula movie?
That's actually the one. Bram Stoker's Dracula by Coppola is my favorite.
Really? See, Dracula Untold. Luke Evans.
Dracula Untold. Nice. That was I'm trying to remember who played Dracula in that movie.
And Untold?
Yeah.
Luke Evans.
Okay, yeah.
He's from Marvel.
Okay.
He was the father in The Hobbit trilogies.
Oh, okay.
Can't think of the man's, but he's the guy that killed Smaug.
Okay, yeah. Very cool. Yeah, I have not seen that one, but I'm a huge fan of Gary Oldman. That was actually the first movie I ever saw Gary Oldman in, was Dracula.
Oh, neat.
And I like Keanu Reeves a lot as well.
Yeah.
And
Winona.
Winona Ryder. Yeah, she was great in that as well. Just a really great movie. And funny enough, I only read Dracula for the first time a couple of years ago.
Oh, wow.
But I've seen the Coppola movie several times. So after I read the book, I went back and rewatched the movie, and I'm like, this was actually pretty faithful to the book. Yeah.
We'll see. And because I've also looked into Vlad Tepes, the actual count, prince. He wasn't a count, he was a prince. And Dracula Untold is actually quite close to what was happening, because they did have to give their sons to the Turks. And Vlad's father actually gave him and his brother Radu over to the Turks. So there's a lot of different things about it, but it's interesting. DNF equals does need finishing.
Yeah, I like that.
See, Jenny would go with that, because she's always saying life's too short for crappy reads. Yes.
Yeah, I like that one too.
But then saying makes you appreciate the good ones more. Yeah, but see, then you got to wait to get there, Van. Well, I'll pay attention to my call. Got to play nice, cat. Few books I read are crap. That's a good thing. Just keep getting distracted with shiny new ones. Yeah, and that's what it's like for me at the thrift store. You don't have to finish to know good ones are good. It does good or bad if it fails to improve. See, now I cheat. If I really need to know sometimes, and I don't do this often, but I'm not a mystery fan reader, obviously. But if I really need to know, I'll read the last chapter, and then I'll decide if it's worth going back to fill in the gap or if I'm done.
Well, there you go. That's one way to do it. Yeah, that's cool. Nothing wrong with that.
I'm just kind of quick. And sorry if I don't throw everything up, folks. Ooh, I have. Oh, there we go. Empire
Yeah,
pretty covers.
they are very pretty covers. Yeah, he has not revealed the cover for the final book yet, but it's the cover reveal is going to be April 1st, from what I understand. Unless
There
they're
we
fooling
go.
us.
Ooh, you have a pretty edition of
I
Dracula.
do, yes. I have the
Nice.
Folio Society edition, and yeah,
Ooh.
it's a beautiful book. I would get it, but Ari's on my lap right now,
That's,
so maybe
and
later.
we're not going to disturb Ari. And see, I have my edition from the 1970s.
Oh,
It cost
wow.
me all of
$1.
$1.95.
Nice.
And same price in Canada and the US because that was not always a thing, two prices on the
Mhm.
book. To me, I still don't understand where that came from.
I don't either. Yeah, I don't really know much about it.
Yeah, it's I'm not even sure. I know it's a long time ago because I mean I've got books 20 some odd years old, and I'm pretty sure some of, just trying to look, but I wouldn't even know which one to grab at this point.
Mm.
Um yeah, I'm not. Yeah. Cat, that's cheating. Yes, it is cheating, but you know, if I gotta know, I gotta know. Pretty sure
Right.
Vlad's brother even converted. Yes,
Oh,
he did.
okay.
Radu, because they were held as ransom by the Ottoman Empire because their father, who was also named Vlad, was put on the Transylvanian throne by the Hungarians,
Hmm.
except Vlad was waffling between the two groups and trying to keep the peace, which did not go well with the Hungarians and the Ottoman Empire.
Hmm.
So, to pull him in line, his two kids went to live with the Ottoman Empire.
Hmm.
And it depends on what you read. I mean, most of them say it wasn't really like being prisoners, the kids were well treated. But then when Vlad was killed by Hyundai, the king,
Mm.
and their older brother was buried alive, then Vlad, at 20 years old, came back to Transylvania and was put on the throne in his father's place. But
Mm.
Radu chose to stay with the Turks. So they eventually, and Vlad was on the throne 3 times because he kept going on, because all political different
Mhm.
stuff, betrayed by his cousin and all
Right.
kinds of nonsense. I mean, the guy was warped to begin with, but all this other stuff, he went like way over the deep end, impaler warped.
Yeah.
But he also ended up battling his brother because
Mm.
his brother came to fight for the Turks. They were trying to keep them out of Romania, and it just, yeah, I've got a couple of books on him. Been waiting to do a episode about Vlad. Other things come up, and I've got a whole bunch of tags to
Hmm.
do, and it's just sometimes hard to decide, where do I put this? Do I do more videos a week? Do I spread them out? And then,
Right. Yeah, it is hard to figure out where to place all the videos you want to do. And I would love, um, excuse me, I would love to see your video on Vlad, though. I really would. And Ari got down, so I can show you so this is the slip
Oh,
case, and then there's the book itself. So yeah, it's
nice.
a very it's a very beautiful edition, and it's fully illustrated, and I love
Oh,
it.
gorgeous.
Yeah. Have you seen Last Voyage of the Demeter?
I have not.
Oh, so it's an excellent movie, and it's about the voyage that brought Dracula to England. Yeah,
Ooh.
it's a perfect companion to the Coppola movie. It has that same atmosphere to it and everything, and you're just following the people on the ship that brought him over to England and what happens, and how they all die. And I think we
New,
knew they all die. I don't think that's spoilers.
yeah, it's kind of like the Titanic. You know how it's going to end. Like,
Right. Yeah, but it's an excellent movie. Really, really excellent. So Liam Cunningham plays the captain of the ship, and yeah, that's the guy that played Davos in Game of Thrones.
ah,
And yeah, it's a fantastic movie. I highly recommend it.
definitely have to check that out. And these books as well.
Mm-hmm.
I just
Yeah.
want to see if we've covered. I think I've pretty much covered all the questions, except do you have a tip or tips for beginning authors or people who may be thinking of writing? What would your suggestions be to maybe, same as like little baby booktubers? What would you suggest?
Yeah. Yeah. Don't. Well, one of my suggestions is don't listen to that little voice in your head that tells you you can't write a book because it's lying. uh, that little voice kept me from writing for a long time, I think. And so yeah, that if you want to write, sit down and do it. And if you find during the process of writing that you're not really great at writing a story, then that's something you've discovered. But at least do yourself uh, do yourself good by at least trying your hand at it. And nobody's perfect right out the gate. Even my first attempt at writing was not great, but uh, it's improved over time. And if you have an active imagination and you have a good grasp on language and everything, you can probably write a book. Um, I think there's a lot more people out there that can write than do write.
Well, and that's excellent tips and advice. And I know in the front of Night Crew, in the introduction, because there's an introduction and a foreword by King. In the
Mhm.
introduction, the individual says, and he's a writer as well, but I haven't read anything by him. But he's like, he goes to these things and people are like, oh, I've always wanted to be a writer. And his
Mhm.
comment is, and I used to try and be polite about it, and now I just say, I've always wanted to be a brain surgeon. And they look at me weird. he goes, and then he goes on to say, if you want to write, write. Like
Right.
Stephen King wanted to be a writer, so he wrote, and not everything he writes is worth publishing. But you
Right.
don't get better if you don't do it.
Exactly.
And
Yeah.
even, King had said he's just blessed that the macabre happens to be his obsession and he's found a way to make money from it while other
Yeah.
people are sitting in, padded rooms.
Yeah.
But he's found a way to get it out of, he can put his
I like
crazy
that.
on the paper
Yeah.
and share those stories. So, yeah, I
Yeah.
mean, and see now, little Miss Jenny here, my bestie wants me to actually write,
You
but I'm
can
not
do it,
that
Jenny.
brave. Jenny, you've got your YouTube channel, you've made a few videos. Now, with the writing, guess what? That's private until you share it with
Yeah.
anybody.
Yeah, absolutely. You can do it, even if it's only for your eyes only forever.
Yeah,
You can still do it, and yeah, that's awesome.
and give
Yeah,
it
I
a whirl.
I encourage anybody to give it a shot.
Yeah. And Vermicelli folio is always so pretty. Have a few that I
Yeah.
got before YouTube existed. Nice.
Yeah, I
Yeah,
have
and
a copy of A Christmas Carol from Folio as well.
nice.
Yeah, it's a really nice edition.
Now, Chaz, do you have to write every day? Do you think people need to write every day? And do you write every day?
I don't think people need to write every day, and I don't write every day.
Okay.
Um, I think uh, I think that can I think that can be discouraging for a lot of people. You know, if they've got, let's say, I sat down to write 5 days, and all of a sudden I missed a day. You can get in that mindset of, oh well, I guess I just wasn't cut out to write, and
Mm,
that's not it at all. Some days you just don't feel like writing, just like some days you don't feel like reading,
yep.
or
Yep.
some days you're too busy to do anything other than the daily chores and the grocery shopping, and so it's not always possible to write every day. Unless maybe if you get up at, I think Stephen King gets up at 5 a.m. and doesn't
Oh,
do anything else until he's written at least 2 or 3 chapters or something like that. I forget what he said, but
oh, wow.
um, I need my sleep.
Yeah, no kidding. 5 a.m. I know what I'd be writing, but it would not be published. That
Yeah,
would
right.
be that would be my keyboard warrior journal writing.
Oh, there you go. I like that. Yeah.
It's getting used these days. The other day I woke up and I filled 3 pages
Hmm.
and it will never be published and it will
Right.
never be read and I will eventually shred it, but it's just
That's a great way to vent, though.
oh
It
yeah,
really
because
is.
that way I don't make a video. I
Hmm.
don't type comments because
Hmm.
none of that stuff ever is going to disappear.
Yeah.
And I have to admit, I've been having to do this watching some videos lately because I don't necessarily want to watch, but I also don't want to get blindsided.
Sure.
And well, that's what I have a husband for. It's like, you watch this crap, and if I need to know something, tell me. But on the other hand, I'm like, well, I kind of need to figure a few things out for
Yeah.
myself. And I'm watching some of these, and I'm like, don't type it, don't type it, don't type it. So then I grab my journal, and it's like, but I
I
have to,
know exactly how you feel there. Yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
Because it does come up, or sometimes even with now I've been lucky, well, I say touch wood, but this is probably particle board, so touch wood. I
Mhm.
haven't really had any bad comments, and I'm coming up to,
Mm.
well, next month will be 3 years, so that's pretty good.
That is.
But I figure at some point it'll happen. But
Mhm.
I'm also thinking, no, because they're just trying to bait you.
Yeah.
And if you don't play, then
Mhm.
that's the end of that. They'll just go find somebody else. But it doesn't mean that it doesn't irritate or aggravate you. So you still need to vent because I'm
Right.
not someone for stuffing things inside. And
Yeah.
not just because of my background as in working in schools or as a case manager with clients. It's
Mhm.
just, I've always said, I will never have an ulcer. Like, I'm
Yeah.
not one, and well, some people are like, but you need a better filter. And I'm like, yeah, probably. Now, my shoulders, I have issues with because I tense up, but I'll never have an ulcer from keeping things inside. But you have to, pick and choose how you let it out.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. Yeah, because once it's out there, it's out there, and so yeah, I like the Keyboard Warrior Journal. I think that's a
Yeah,
fantastic idea.
I mean, you could do it and I just have an old duo tang. And well, actually, I can show the front because it's just because you can take out the papers, and I
Mhm.
just printed off some emojis. What originally I was going to do with this, because I start writing in the back, and
Mhm.
I'm not into keeping negative energy or things negative around.
Mhm.
So I was going to, as soon as it was done, take them out and rip them up and
Mhm.
then
Yeah.
just, recycle it. Boom, done.
Mhm.
But then I realized when I had popped it, because I don't use it all the time, but then I had realized a while ago I had written something down, but I didn't get rid of it. But
Mhm.
then when I looked at it, it was even more therapeutic because I'm like, okay, well, that doesn't matter anymore. Oh, yeah, I still need to work on this. And then I'm like, okay, so I'm not going to rip it up right away, but I can still easily. And then I've got my other everyday journal for all my happy gratitude things.
Oh,
So
that's
that way
awesome.
the two don't mix. So I've got,
Hmm.
a running thing of everything that's going right. And then I've got my Captain Makeup needs to go away journal.
Oh, that's excellent. I like that. Yeah, I like that.
Because you're right. You need to get it out and just, and I mean, I don't care what they say. I mean, I haven't had Facebook for years, but I know that's still out there somewhere. I mean, you
Hmm.
watch these court cases and things now, or even some of this stuff when these politicians are attacking each other. And it's like, how long ago was that up on Facebook? And someone found that how?
Hmm.
When it was deleted,
Right, exactly.
you
Yeah,
know? And I mean, the other is too is, well, you can apologize, but that doesn't mean it goes away or people have forgotten.
right.
It's a tough kind of thing. Yeah, oh, there you go. Face gives it away. Good thing a lot of folks too oblivious to read it. Yeah, and see, I'm the same. I suck at lying. I've never seen it a skill to develop, but
Right.
it's ooh, good news of the day. Oh, lemon thyme plant. Yay!
Cool. That's awesome.
We've been chatting about getting now, is it gardening weather in your area yet, Chaz?
Um,
In
Probably, yeah. I have a black thumb. I usually kill plants, so I have no idea. But it's probably about that time of year that people could start gardening.
Nice.
But yeah,
Yes.
I'm terrible. I can't even. And so you would think in Arizona that an aloe vera plant would be the easiest thing in the world to keep alive, but I even those have died on my watch. So yeah, yeah. I can write, but I can't keep plants alive. It's
See, no, it's funny. I can grow plants. I used to have them indoors,
yeah.
and then a few of our cats were nibblers. So it was just safer to not have them.
Hmm.
And I love being outside, and I love, that's like my happy place. My type of meditation is just sitting out or doing gardening, not the closed eye kind of thing. Now, the funny thing is, I can grow just about anything in the ground.
Hmm.
In a pot, not so much.
Okay.
It's hilarious. Like my plants in the ground, they'll get huge. They're great. I can pretty much grow anything without killing it.
Yeah.
But other than tomatoes and a few herbs, my potted plants do not do well. And I
Oh,
water them, I talk to them, same as everything else, and
yeah.
I have no idea what it is. I have to lie. If I told my supervisor, yeah,
Yeah,
well,
I
you
feel
know,
that.
there's a skill for that one.
Hmm.
Killed succulents when I lived in New Mexico, marigold zinnias. Strangely enough, tea roses do great for me here. There we go. And Ginny, did you just say you were growing pot?
Ah,
No, I did not. But I could. It's legal up here if you have
yeah,
the right
it's legal in
little.
Arizona too, surprisingly. So yeah.
Yeah, if you can grow, if you have the right paperwork, you can grow so many plants for your personal use. But
Hmm.
it's crazy up here the number of pot shops
Yeah.
that have opened up. And in fact, we had so many that some of them are now closing. It's like, well,
Oh
no
wow.
kidding. Well,
Yeah.
because the novelty wore off, right?
Yeah, it did.
And the price, now here's the sad part, the price is more than street. So
Mm,
some people have just gone back to their old sources versus buying in the store because it's less expensive. I mean, and that's the other thing with this current issue is I agree the borders need to be tightened up.
Mhm.
But if you can pull $1 billion virtual dollars out of your ass to do stuff at the border, why can't you pull $1 billion virtual dollars out of your ass to actually put together social programs for people
Mhm.
trying to kick drug and alcohol addiction?
Yeah, I agree.
It's
Yeah.
like, hey, guess what? Instead of beating your chest that you're going after the cartel who are laughing their asses off at you dumbasses, why don't you actually help the people who are trying to deal with this? Because if there's no customers, it's not going to be an issue. Like,
Yeah.
this is why I'm not a politician. I'm not dumb enough.
Yeah.
Oh,
Exactly.
yes. Then can't maintain a lawn, have house plants, had for years. There you see? And again, so it can grow. And my plants inside were good. They were all in pots. But outside, it's just for some reason different. Marigold seeds. Yeah. And that's the other. I always enjoy, well, here we wait till around May 24th, or what's known as May 24 up here. It's Queen Victoria's birthday.
Oh,
And
okay.
that's normally when all risk of frost is gone. So that's when you
Mm.
start going out and planting your veggies and different
Mm.
things. But to do it before then, you've still got that risk of frost throw.
Mhm.
May try, need to fix fences first. Oh yeah, there was a bit of a wind issue with the fences. Could say why they can't help trying to fake nice cause, you know. Yeah, it's I'm looking forward to the warm weather, and
I am
we've
too.
had so much snow this year, like
Oh, wow, yeah.
feet and feet. I actually had pictures. I'll have to go take some in the next while to do a comparison because I had some. I was literally like 2 feet off the ground,
Oh, wow.
standing on the snow, and
Mm.
now it's all melted. So now I have to play around in iMovie and get them side by side. So
Yeah.
yeah. Now, do you ever get snow in your area?
Very, very rarely. On occasion, it has snowed here for maybe 30 minutes.
Yeah.
Now up north in northern Arizona, they get a lot of snow.
Really?
Yeah, yeah. So I'm Phoenix is resting right about 1,000 feet above sea level, and Flagstaff and northern Arizona is right around 5,800, 6,000 feet above sea level. So a big
Oh,
difference.
yeah.
They get a lot of snow, and there's a big ski resort in Flagstaff and everything. So
Now, see, it's funny when you say Flagstaff, I think of Stephen King, The Stand.
oh yeah, yeah, Randall Flagg. Yeah.
Yeah,
Mhm.
it's not the name, but for some reason it just always, what?
I get that. Yeah, yeah,
But yeah, I
yeah,
had no idea that the climate was or even the elevation. I mean, that's a
yeah.
huge difference.
It is. Yeah, it is a huge difference. Yeah. So it's always nice, like when when it's really hot in the summer here, because we average between 110, 115 degrees Fahrenheit, um, which I guess would be around 33. Would that be what, 33 degrees Celsius? I have no idea, but
I'm no good with the.
because
I still think in Fahrenheit, even though
oh,
our
okay,
stuff
you do,
is
yeah,
centigrade.
yeah. So when it's really hot here in the summer, it's nice to be able to escape up north for a weekend or something and cool
Yeah.
off. Yeah, yeah, because I think during the summer, it gets to maybe 80 up there
Mm.
in the summer, so it's not bad. Um, but yeah, it's yeah, some definitely extreme weather here.
Well, sometimes it can be here too, but I think your heat is more of a dry heat, isn't it?
Usually, yeah,
It's
yeah,
not quite the wet because we have like the heat and then we have the humidex, which can knock it
yeah.
up 10, 15 degrees, and it's just brutal. Like last time, because I've always been anti AC, I'm just
Hmm.
not an air conditioning person. And even when I worked in the group homes and that, I hated it because you'd be inside for, if you weren't going out with clients and whatnot, you'd be there for 8 hours and then you'd come out and wheeze for 10, 15 minutes to acclimatize.
Yeah,
But last year we finally, and maybe that was the ticket for not having a crazy summer, we finally broke down and bought a little window AC,
yeah,
and then it wasn't too bad. But sometimes here, yeah, it can just be brutal.
yeah,
As Yvonne's talking about the rain, just want a not as wet summer this year.
oh yeah.
Now, my backyard doesn't turn into a swamp. It can get mushy, but not too bad. Oh,
Okay, 43
110 is
Celsius.
43.
Okay,
There you go. Back
yeah.
onto peat moss, so it takes a lot to get swampy. Hot's hot, but yeah, that humidity, and that's what we have up here. So yours would still be hot, but just
Mhm.
not as, just a different kind of hot. Fused.
Yeah, it's definitely drier here for sure. I mean, we do get a little bit of humidity, but not much. Maybe at the most 10% humidity.
That's
Uh,
not good.
and even that's not most of the time. It is pretty dry for the most part. When it rains, we'll get some humidity, and we do have a pretty good monsoon season here. So
Mm. Now, and you have it warm pretty much all year round then.
yeah, yeah. The coldest we get in the winter time, it's hit as low as 35 degrees.
Mm.
But yeah, usually we average between 45 to 60 during the winter time, depending on the day.
That's
Yeah,
not bad.
yeah,
We get minus 20 to 30 here
yeah. I
with the
know you
wind
do.
chill.
That's
And
that's a lot. Oof.
yeah, well, and here's not even as cold as out west, like Saskatchewan and Manitoba will get
Mhm.
a whole lot hotter. So where
Yeah.
Cat is, high 80s to 100-ish, same. Ooh, work in front of a walk-in oven. Yeah, I used to work as a
Oh.
cook in a daycare center. Man, that was brutal. I was there for, well, thankfully, just 1 year before I actually got into a full-time casework position. But man, that was one hot summer because they had like a big stove and no air conditioning. And of course, you're making lunch for all kinds of 100 some odd kitties. And it was like,
Yeah.
it could get hot.
Yeah,
Hits
that's for sure.
25. No air conditioning in build. Yeah, yeah. No air conditioning in buildings. UK is not designed for heat. Well, that's like, and I'm going to say it wrong. Literally, there we go. Got it right. Literally love 123. Jen is in Alabama. And I remember a little while ago, she was saying they had a bit of snow, and it was like a little bit of snow. It was so cute. I'm sitting here laughing, going, wow. And she was talking about how everything was going to be closed the next day.
Mhm.
And I'm like, but again, they have nothing. It's like we were talking about the tornadoes and things before. In
Yeah.
their area, they don't have anything to clean snow, and nobody there is used to driving in the
Mhm.
snow, or you don't slam on brakes because you type of, but it's yeah. Hayden and Jen, anything in double
Yeah.
digits. It's not a spring day. Same, it's always damp. Yeah, and that's the other. They get a lot more rain and things there. But well, I think I got all of my questions answered. Thank you so
Okay.
much, Chaz. Now, do
Yeah.
you want to talk about what's your latest release or what's coming up?
Yeah, sure. So yeah, I've got my newest book is The Nomad's Crucible, and that
Nice.
came out in October. So and this is a full-length novel. There's no short stories in it. So full-length novel about an assassin, and it it runs more on the fantasy side of sci-fantasy, but there are some science fiction or post-apocalyptic elements to it.
Hmm.
So that's there, and it's about forget how many pages. I can tell you guys the page count, about 340 pages. So
Nice.
so it's a short read, standalone, and then I have two projects that I'm working on right now. One is codenamed Ink, and that's a full length novel. And then another one codenamed Dreamer is a novella, and it's kind of a prequel to all the books in my repertoire. So it's kind of a origin story for the universe that I'm building. So
Cool.
yeah, so I'm just kind of writing in both of them right now and seeing which one I go further with, which one really strikes my fancy right now. But yeah, so far Ink is the one that's taking up the most of my mind right now and most of what I'm working on, and that's the one that will feature the Ink Master in a key role. So
Nice.
yeah,
Oh, now here's one I didn't ask you, and we were talking a bit about this before because the whole people machines concept.
yeah.
Typically, how long does it take you to write your works? Like you said, Talindor's Guest was about a year between all the
Mhm.
different short stories. What about Nomad's Crucible and the others? Actually, how many books do you have in total?
Yeah, so I have these two, and then I have well, I technically have four. Two books are collections of blog posts that I wrote way back in the day that I kind of reworked and put into a a book, and
Oh,
those are
neat.
ebook only. But one of those is Thinkable Thinks That I Have Thought, and then another one is called Dragons Within Me, and both of those are on my Amazon author page. You can find those. So those are, I guess you'd say, more nonfiction. And then
Okay.
these are the only two fiction books I've written so far. The Nomad also took me about a year to write, but then by the time I had finished writing it, I was so um, well, I don't want to say burned out, but I can't think of another way to say it, so I'll just say burned out.
Yeah.
That I put it aside for about another year before I even looked at it again.
Oh,
And
wow.
I went back and did some editing, and so the whole process from starting to write the book to actually publish it was about 7 years. Uh,
Wow.
I wrote it in the span of a year, but then I went back and made changes and edits, and but I didn't really get serious about publishing it till about a year ago. So
Now, when you said about putting it aside and burnout, is it just you weren't pleased with the way the story was going, or you were just exhausted with the whole writing?
I was just mentally exhausted from the writing. Yeah,
Yeah. Just
yeah.
trying to get everything to flow and hoping
Mhm.
and so and then one, good for you for recognizing that and putting it aside instead of, slogging through it and then putting out something that you weren't going to be pleased with. But
Mhm.
again, and this is the one I must have heard you talking about on your channel because I knew there was one that was years. For some reason, I thought 8 years from start to finish. And excuse me, again, that's what people don't understand
Mhm.
with, yes, I can get this book, but this book took a bit of time to produce. I mean, okay, even Talindor's Guest, a year, but that's still a year of work and editing and getting that all done.
Right.
Nomad's Crucible, right? 7 years. And, part of that's from putting it aside and getting to work on it. And I'll be honest, it's why I never do inky dinky short author reviews,
Mm.
because I figure, you know what? These books take a lot of time, take a lot of heart and soul,
Mhm.
and I'm not going to race through it. Like, I figure if someone doesn't want to watch a 15-20 minute video, that's fine. There's lots of quickie snippet ones there, and there's nothing wrong with that either.
Yeah.
I just want to spend more time chatting about the book and get more conversation going about it. So I'm always excited when I see comments below if they're talking about it. And I've really been excited this year that, and I was laughing because on Monday I was having tea with a friend because it's March break and she still works in the school. So we were chit chatting and I was
Mhm.
showing her all my books and I'm like, look at, I actually know these people. This is so exciting, instead
Yeah.
of, oh yeah, I've read this author, but you've never had a conversation with them or interacted. Whereas now I can go, yeah, I follow their YouTube channel, or yeah, I've, connected with them in chats. And
Mhm.
I'm like, why wasn't I doing this before? But it's all good. We get there when when
Yeah.
the time is right.
Yes, we do. That's right.
So yeah, and that's why, I want, and I keep bringing it up in my videos now, is, people need to understand that it's a long process,
Mhm.
start to finish here. Oh yeah, the up and down weather, there's no adapting. Negatives a couple weeks ago, 80s this week, couple of degrees above freezing next week. Yeah,
Oh.
ours is up and down. Like, I'm sitting here with a big fluffy micro fleece on.
Mhm.
And, the other day it was warm enough to be off with just no sleeves.
Mhm.
Excuse me, gonna be nuts to almost May. Safely put my plants out. Yep. So and Kat and I always laugh because we're so far apart. But it's funny how much our weather is the same,
Mhm.
even though I'm like, farther up north. But yeah, see, ours is the same until May. There's the end of May, there's no point.
Mhm.
Oh, okay. So, Kat, does that happen regularly or just with Crucible?
That was the first time it had happened. Was with Crucible. Yeah. So yeah, that had never happened to me before. I was not expecting it to take as long as it did to get that book out. And yeah, yeah. So I'm hoping not to do that again. My plan is if I can crank out a new book, release a new book maybe every couple of years. That would be ideal. Yeah,
Nice.
I'm not planning to go 7 years again.
Now, do you think with Crucible, was it maybe you were just writing too much too fast and not pausing and giving yourself a bit of a break? Like you were saying, don't write every day or you can.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. I think that's a big one. I did pretty much write every day, and I wrote big chunks. There would be days where I wrote
Mm,
2,500 words. Some days I would write 5,000 words, and so it was a lot of effort, and
yeah.
I think that contributed to it for sure. Yeah.
Yeah. So, and I mean, from that, then you've learned that you need to take those breaks and pause and not, overdo. And like any type of job, right? You need to balance that work, playtime,
Mhm.
and I mean, I know Ven and I have chatted about it, and I think I've chatted with a few other folks as well, and I've seen it happening again recently, a number of booktubers taking a break. They're done.
Yeah.
I don't know if you'd call it burnt out or exhausted. And this was before, even some of the things started going even more cuckoo cuckoo than they are now, is,
Yeah.
it I think it's a combination of sometimes people get caught up in the numbers, or they've got so much things going on at home and they've got other jobs, which, I mean,
Mhm.
for me, that's not a great thing, but I just don't. So my scheduling's different. But
Sure.
yeah, if you're always pumping out, pumping out, pumping out, and then they're like, yeah, I'm taking a month or two off, and sometimes they come back and
Yeah.
sometimes they don't. There's one person I know who's been at it for 10 years,
Mm.
and most of the people they started with are gone.
Yeah. Right.
It's they either just moved on or got bored with it, or you
Yeah.
know it can kick you in the nads if you get caught up in the numbers or the analytics.
Hmm.
Or you're like one of these people, which I'm not. As soon as it goes up, you hop on, oh, do I need to change my thumbnail and this or that? And it's like, no, mine are up. I'm so glad that I found that scheduled thing. So I
Hmm.
can schedule them like a week, whatever, if,
Sure.
I've got
Yeah.
things. So I'm not near the computer when it goes on. I'm not
Yeah.
even usually near my phone,
Same.
because I'm not waiting for ping, ping, ping or silence and going,
Mhm.
well, I worked 4 hours on that. Nobody's watching. No, it's, I put it up. I've usually listened to mine at least twice all the way through before I put
Mm.
it up, because I'm always, what are the words? What's the message? Does it look okay? And then I put it up, and just I figure it's out there, and whoever's meant to see it, or if they need it, or if it's what they enjoy,
Mhm.
then it's there. But yeah, it can, if you're even a bit wobbly and not having a good day, it can kick you in the nads, especially
Oh,
if
yeah.
you've spent those hours and you see 10 views. It's like,
Mhm. That's
really?
for sure. It really can. It can get discouraging, and I've been doing this almost 6 years,
Wow.
and I've seen some people drop off and stop, and, some of it for the reasons you talked about, and other people, life just gets crazy, and they can't make the time for making videos, and, I know if I was to try to do more than I do, it just would
Mm,
not be a good thing. I've been releasing a video every Tuesday and Friday for probably 3 years at least,
nice.
and those are just that just works best for me, and, I watch videos and they say, "Oh, you should post at least 3 times a week," and I'm like, I don't have time for that, so the people that wanna watch my channel, they're only gonna get 2 videos a week, so.
Well, and I think, it's been ages since I mean, I still watch Nick Nimmin, but it's been months.
Mhm.
And I mean, he's always got great advice.
It
He's
does,
a
yeah, right.
sweetheart because he answers. If you leave a comment, he always responds, which for someone
Mhm.
with 900K subs,
Yeah,
good on you. I mean, I don't
that's a
care if he's
lot,
paying someone to do it. Either way, someone's paying attention to those comments.
yeah.
Um, but and when I think it was, I don't know, 7 or so months ago, and as I was starting to get to know people in the community, and I just emailed some, because
Mhm.
it's like, how do you do it? Do you have any tips, suggestions? And it can just be soul crushing, and they're like, there's no answer. I mean, one person told me, they've tried every time a day uploading and nothing makes a difference.
Mhm.
You know, some people are consistent, and I've seen some amazing, amazing people out there, and they hardly get any views, and they haven't even cracked the 500. I've seen others. They don't pay attention to the background. They don't look at the screen. It's and tons and tons and tons of views. And I'm like there really is no rhyme or reason. And I don't necessarily trust analytics because I did a basic 101 analytics because we were chatting in one of the streams, and I'd found out where unsubs were. And everyone's like, oh, where'd you get? And I'm like, I'll just put it together. I mean, I don't go in depth into it. I look at my returning viewers, how much of my viewing hours are coming from them. So the percentage, and now and again, just for giggles, how many unsubs over the length of the channel. But I was laughing as I was putting my little PowerPoint together and, doing my screenshots. On my stats, it said 100% of my viewers were female for that 28-day period I was looking at, which I knew was total nonsense because there were a bunch of men that I know are men because you can see them. It's not like Facebook where you don't know from a name.
Right.
And yet YouTube was telling me 0% were men. I'm like, well, that's not right. It's like, did the AI not know how to do that?
Right.
But I just want to balance. Mine's so far out of whack right now, especially towards making videos. Yeah. And again, I think it comes and goes too. And you just, like you had said, Chaz, same with reading, right? Sometimes you just don't want to read. There's other things to do, or you want to watch a movie, watch TV, or do something. And I think you just need to new position still a while. Oh, yes, because the job, Ven got promoted in January. So adjusting to that new work schedule last week. Record a lot when I'm off. Done none other than the Margaret chat, which was a great live stream. Never listen, rewatch anything. Just trust I've not broken anything. Do you rewatch yours, Chaz, before you?
Not really. On occasion, I will if I have to double check that something showed up right. But other than that, I don't, because by the time I'm done editing it, I've watched it so much already that I'm just like, I can't.
I'm done.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I do that as well as, just put mine up unless I have to add in a picture, splice multiple clips. Yeah, I'm so jealous because Kat can just ream them off and up they go. And I'm like, nope. Does not happen. I cut out a good 15, 20 minutes of rambling and
So do I. Yeah.
That's talking about sleep. See, naps I can't do. I'm not a napper. Do you find them refreshing?
I do love a good nap when I can get one. Yeah, I do find them refreshing for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. I like Kat's comment down a little bit there. Because she's a cat, she loves her day off naps.
Yeah.
That's me too. I was probably a cat in a former life, I think, because
need those cat naps. See, and I know for some people they work wonders. My husband's a napper, which makes Xena and Panther very happy because then they all get the bed because Xena and Panther stretch out on my side and my husband has his side. And even if I was a napper, I'd have nowhere to lay down anyways. But I just find them, they make me more tired for some reason.
Right.
According to Captain Makeup, everyone's junk's determined.
I have not heard that nickname for him yet. I love it. That
Captain Makeup?
Yeah.
That would be me.
Oh, okay. That's great. I love it. I'm stealing that. I hope that's okay.
Oh, go ahead. I have no license on it, but it came from after watching, as the Norwegian called it, that shit show with Zelensky. And I had seen part of it and that big hullabaloo about the suit. And then I'm seeing a picture of this individual on the side, and you can see literally the line of how much makeup is there and how pasty pale. And I'm like, and you're picking on him about a suit? How could no one laugh their ass off looking at you standing there? I mean, I've never, and that, to be honest, he's part of the reason I've never worn foundation, because I've seen so many women do that.
Yeah.
It's not a good look. And for someone who gets money, surely to crikey, they could figure out a way to put it on better.
Mm-hmm.
Or I'd love to see them without the makeup, like some of these models, and I'm willing to bet a few people would wake up fast going, that's what I'm following? Coherence overrated. Always the couch. It's where I get all my best sleep. Well, I have a couch, but if I want to stretch out and have my comfy binkies, I have to fight Xena for them in the daytime.
Danger Yam and Tangerine Palpatine. That's great. That's great. I love it.
Seeing Kat and I are now, see, there you go. So I got to give you giggles. Poor Kat, her voice was going the other day, but otherwise she felt okay. And as you know, Kat's fun size, meaning a little bit shorter than even me.
Yeah.
Well, her voice Friday night was also fun size. So it was in the sprint, it was just hysterical. And she was talking about not liking veggies and coffee in that little camp. And I had tears running down my face. And then I looked at my coffee cup the next day and I just started laughing, hearing her little tiny voice going on about coffee's not good. And I'm just like, oh. So we've been sharing giggles.
Yeah.
A toupee. There's that. We'll see. And I have to find a way, and I don't think you can do it without a membership on YouTube, of playing back a video. And there's one out there now, and I might just put a link on it, because on Mondays, what I'm doing now is a series I call Canadian Humor. And it's either reading stories by Stuart McLean, and they're just funny, silly stories about antics and whatnot. But actually 25 years ago, there was a commercial for Molson Canadian beer, and it was called I Am Canadian. And there was an actor who did it. It was short, sweet. Well, now he's redone that commercial, but it's called We Are Canadian. And it relates to things going on now. And there's a line in there about, here in Canada, we like our poutine, which is the fries, gravy, curds.
Right.
Not like, and I think he even says the other one's name, not the Putin. And then he's got a picture of Putin on the, but it's hilarious. And it's under 2 minutes, but he hits all the succinct points of everything. And then he ends with, my name is Jeff, and we are Canadian. So rather than just him as I. And there's a great YouTube video out there as well, where he's talking about why he decided to make this update. And yes, it's 25 years later, but I mean, I really do think laughter's the best medicine. And if we can find ways to, stick together. And we've been a number of us have been talking too about how awesome it is to have this community and make the connections and people check in and lovely comments. And there's just, so many great things, supporting our authors and reading their books and having them on live streams. There's just, you got to look for all those things that are going right, because goodness knows there's thousands of them out there, more than happy to tell you what's going wrong.
That's so true. Yeah, it really is.
We've got We've got to stick together.
Yes, we do. I agree.
Well, anyhow, Chaz, my 2 hours. I don't think
Yeah,
I've ever had a under hour one since I did them on my own.
yeah. Well, this has been great. I really appreciate you having me on, Elaine, and I'm so happy to be able to chat with you about my books and about a lot of other stuff today. This has been fun.
Well, I've enjoyed it. And hey, on second time, that's awesome. And
Yeah,
hey, when I can get Nomad's Crucible, I have to have you back and have a chit chat about that one. It's awesome.
oh, well, that's great. I'd love to, Elaine. And one of these days, I'll get you on my channel on the flip side as well. So
Hey,
that would be great.
that would be awesome. And it's fun because, I mean, typically I do them Thursday, but I like flipping around because sometimes it's a nice mix as well. And you got to
Yeah,
go with, what's going to work best for everybody. So this way we got to mix up a Sunday night.
yeah. This was really good. I'm glad we were able to make this happen, and I'll look forward to being on again for sure. And thanks to
Awesome.
everybody that was joining us too.
Yeah. Thank you so much, everyone. And we're going to call it a wrap. Appreciate all the questions and the comments. Enjoy the rest of your Sunday night and take care.
Bye, everybody.